There's been a lot of fuss over Kavanaugh since he got both confirmed and put on the court yesterday, and there's been a lot of fuss about the midterms and all that good political stuff. And I'll tell you that as someone who follows this stuff on a day-to-day basis, I don't think I've been more disgusted with the people involved in it that actually, take the time to tweet about it every day, post something on Facebook every day, the usual. In the entire time I've been doing that. And the reason I say that is because yesterday I tried to educate myself on what's going on in Yemen, where you're going to get a more in-depth look at this in the video yesterday. But basically, we've had 10,000 people die over there, out 800,000 people be reported to have cholera, and that's been due to Saudi Arabia with the backing of the U.S. blocking off their ports and preventing them from being able to import medicine while destroying their food, the mosque, the hospitals, the schools, just any place where there could be humanitarian aid. Now, this is a policy that Obama started and Trump's continued, and I bring it up because it's one of those things where it's so disenfranchising because I've repeatedly told people that there's no difference between both political parties. That you have the warmongering abroad and the gassing you up with social issues domestically. So, for example, you'll have Cruz or Booker, if you want to have a Democratic example, who will say, you know, Republicans want to do this to you, the Democrats want to do this to you, and they'll maybe differ on this one issue, but they'll both co-sign or sign off on these multiple conflicts that we're in. As I said before, we're bombing 7 countries right now. We're in 7 wars, most of which were started by Obama. Now, nevertheless, when I repeat these statistics to people, I've noticed that in a lot of cases, if they're a Trump supporter or if they're one of those hardcore, what a lot of people would call Trump derangement syndrome having Democrats, they'll try to shame you for mentioning this stuff, and implicating that the person that they support is the cause of it. So, for example, if you were to tell a Trump supporter, yeah, Obama had 63% of Americans unable to afford $1,000 emergency, they would say, oh, that horrible Obama, he didn't know what he was doing. But if you say, wait, Trump is doing the same thing, they go, oh, no, he's not. He's record low unemployment. Then you say that's not an indicator of wealth. Then they tell you about the tax cuts, and then you say 83% of that went to the top 1%. They'll tell you that they got some of that. You'll say, of course you did. It's not conducive to everyone getting screwed. Majority of people who are already at the bottom are not being helped. It just goes on and on and on. And it's the same thing with the other side. If you tell them that the Democrats have been complicit in destroying Yemen, as well as these other conflicts that just go and violate everyone's human rights, they will lash out at you for trying to implicate one party as being similar to the other because it erases the fantasy they've made in their head that this one side is the good guys. You've seen hashtag vote blue to save America and uh, restore democracy with the blue wave and all this other nonsense. And you keep trying to explain to people that it's not about a hatred for a party. It's a dislike of ideas that are being perpetuated by individuals. I would have had no problem voting for Trump if he had said, or if he had rather pledged to get out of these 7 wars and laid out some plan of action on how to do it, as well as breaking up the banks, leaving those social issues alone. There's a wide plethora of things, but the bottom line is that he would have presented himself as an actual better alternative to Clinton. I don't have any preoccupation with either party. And the reason I brought up the Yemen thing is to say that given that she ran as Obama's third term, there's no reason to believe she wouldn't have done the exact same thing were she elected. Now, obviously, that didn't happen, and a lot of people thought, oh, maybe we can finally get a change just to get the same policies abroad and a very large chunk of the same things over here, the same surveillance state. We've been over this a million times, but you get the picture. Lack of action on the banks. So when you think about how similar things are, administration to administration, and you get told by people, because I've had people in my own life who will say, "Oh man, we've never seen anything like this. Trump is doing yada yada yada," and it's put me in a scenario where even if it's something I don't like that he's doing, I almost have a sickening feeling when these people want me to co-sign with them because I know that when these same things were done under Obama, they said nothing. The same thing with ICE. That is an enforcement agency that's been around since 2003. I'm not saying it's good it's been around that long, but I'm certainly saying that the reception to the family separation policy this late in the game, 14 years after it started, was overblown. It should have been a subject of controversy back when I was 5 years old when it was first created, but it wasn't. Now, going back to the main point I was making here is that in their approach of saying register to vote, register to vote, register to vote, they've really seemed they've tried to present a narrative about the good guy Democrats, the bad guy Republicans. And again, when you have a policy of two parties with having members that both support a literal genocide in another country, I don't see where you can make the inference that your side is any better. The Democrats have a thing about getting people that are not pro-life, saying you can't be for restricting abortion access, which I think is at least as far as showing that they have a uniform stance against something, good thing. But they won't do the same thing when it comes to their foreign policy. So they'll gas you up with social issues here, while being complicit in deaths overseas. And I actually had a user who I spoke with last night who said that, me advocating for free college was the equivalent of, trying to sound like a victim when I was complaining about the military budget, and also trying to, not being readily knowledgeable about facts or knowledge or any of the other nonsense. And, I responded by mentioning a couple of statistics. I talked about the for-profit healthcare system costing thousands of, trillions of dollars actually. Basically just to say that we already spend this kind of money. And his response was to block me. But that's a good example of what has caused me to become so disillusioned with the political discussion. You see, I care very little about the presidential election that's going to start its basic preliminary rounds in a couple of months, because I expect to get the same kind of people, reciprocating at least my interest in this cycle. So, for example, there are people who are still on Twitter today who will say it was Bernie who messed up Hillary, it was the non-voters who got us Trump, and they say that with full conviction that there's some kind of things that are happening that wouldn't have happened under Clinton, who, let's be real, would have had the same Yemen policy. But when you tell them that your reason for believing that is because of her, the way she presented things, and you lay out facts, they deny that. And that's why, like, these people who post regularly on these websites, for the most part, are not my kind of voters. Like, I've told you guys before, I have two people that I speak with regularity that don't follow politics whatsoever. They might see a headline or two, but they generally stay out of it. And what I've noticed about them, these two people who don't pay much attention and just kind of independents that do their own thing, is that when you give them statistics, facts, counterpoints, they're a lot more likely to say, "All right, I agree with that. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not going to argue against that," because they have an open mind that is not cultivated by the nonsense surrounding them. They've mentioned people in their own lives, pretending as if Trump is the coming of the apocalypse, and while pretending Obama was some kind of saint. And when you explain to them the same 7 wars under both, same surveillance state, same lack of action on the banks, they're a lot more likely to say, you know what, that is true. I agree with that. And I'm saying that this isn't so much about agreeing with me, but more so being amendable. Because at a time when I first got into this stuff, believed the same things about Obama. And then I was told about all of these different conflicts that he started, or just various policies of his that led me to have a negative assessment of him. And I'm not saying I'm proud of lowering my opinion of him, but I am proud of listening to what was factually stated to me. But it seems that with these people, they want to live in this world of rear view mirrors where you can't accept that a good chunk of what has been allowed to happen with the political system has been due to a preference of style over substance. Go on Twitter right now, or go on the comments section of most Kavanaugh reaction videos, and it's people talking about, oh, the Democrats lost, the Republicans won, MAGA, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. People do not care about actual positions or issues or topics that have to do with people's lives. It's just a game now. Oh, are the Democrats going to win this time, or the Republicans going to win that time? I don't care because I'm getting the same screwed up assistance of Saudi Arabia in killing all of these people um, and depriving them of natural resources with either party, with at least of their presidential candidates and most of their members of Congress. And it's really sad because when it's so glaringly obvious to you because they don't try to hide any of the this information, and you go out of your way to try and share it with people. So, for example, I mentioned that I go on Twitter and I try to say, "Hey, this is happening. Hey, we're experiencing, loads and loads of individuals being murdered in this one country." You bring up the number of 10,000. You talk about the 800 plus that have this cholera, this deadly disease, the worst epidemic of it in modern history. Um, they don't care, and they don't care because it's not concerning them, or they believe it's good because it's in the fight against terrorists. And as I said yesterday, the Houthi rebels have had no conflicts with the United States, but it goes back to this thing where people can't empathize or put themselves out of their position that they currently have. Oh, what do I care about some kids in some random foreign country when you know damn well that if 11,000 or rather 10,000 people had died in the U.S. of whatever, you'd have loads of individuals tweeting and ranting and complaining about this crisis and this horrible thing that's happening. And how do I know that? Because look at the reaction 9/11. You've had over 3 times as many people die from American-backed airstrikes by the Saudis in Yemen than all the casualties in 9/11 over the last 3 years. And no one cares, no one complains. But this is why people talk about being negative, but look at what's going on. Look at the individuals who regularly talk about political events. Look at the fact that I'd be much more popular if all I did was just say Trump is great, the Democrats suck, and got his supporters to come over and like my stuff. I'd be even more popular if I just said Trump is stupid, the Democrats are great, and got all their supporters to come over and watch my stuff because I want to present a balanced picture that isn't about being a partisan hack who looks the other way when Obama does something evil, but gets all angry when Trump does the exact same thing. There is a decision by those who see this content to not check it out regularly because they don't want to live, they don't want to believe that they're screwed either way. And unfortunately, we won't get to a point where they realize that until it's too late. The Kavanaugh thing, for example, maybe wouldn't have happened under Clinton, but we still would have had a right wing judge who kept up Citizens United. Um, and people don't want to accept that. But a lot of people don't even know what Citizens United is. I had a person who a couple of weeks ago said, um, how do you expect Trump to fix all these statistics that I mentioned? I said, that was the whole point of the first 100 days. Ever since FDR with the New Deal, you've had someone come out with a bunch of programs, whether it was a jobs program, which is the opposite of welfare because you're actually working for whatever the benefits are, um, you know, going and trying to resolve everything at once. But again, there's the critical thinking is missing here. That's why like it's not difficult for me to just objectively look into someone's face on one of these profiles and just say if you continue to vote for Trump after knowing what he has allowed to happen in Yemen, or any of these senators that voted to keep up what's going on in Yemen, you are complicit in evil. You are a scumbag, just like your representative. And I don't care because it's easy for me. It's just as it's easy for them to cast that ballot on whoever that politician is that's going to just vote that one day to let this thing go on and go back to their comfortable air conditioned room. It's easy for me to turn off, my computer and go, oh, well, I guess people are just going to die over there for another 5 or 6 years and I can, stay and be in my little relaxed area. But I'm not going to say it doesn't concern me or bother me. And I think if more people cared and held their politicians to standards where they actually went and reviewed their record and not just sit there and, go and watch some stupid music video where they bop their head for 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes straight, we'd live in a better country. But things are the way they are because of the complicitness of people less so than the evil of the politicians that get in office. They're not villains. They're people who want to make money and also be famous. And so what they'll do is sell you out while their donors pay them, and while you stupidly think that they're representing you. And this isn't something that one side suffers from. It is a unilateral problem that, until people accept, will continue to happen. Like I said, with both of those guys I talk with, they are a beacon of hope in dark times, because they have the mentality that is needed in mass, where people might have one or two things they come in with a bias toward, but if you show them enough proof and evidence of something, you can get them to adjust their view and not vote against their own interest. But that's how stupid the people are of the current era, where they actively try to suppress information that doesn't fit their narrative. So you're going to keep having people who will get upset with me for calling out the income inequality that's happened under both Obama and Trump, and for condemning both for their roles in the killing of over 10,000 people in Yemen, as well as the outbreak of over 800,000 cases of cholera in that same country. But I don't care, because the people don't care. Except my lack of empathy and concern is toward the feelings of these awful politicians and their retarded voters.